What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here on this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, I wanted to do this right after the most recent season had ended, but it's been a couple of days, so the numbers might be a little bit higher, but we can at least get a rough idea. And so I just want to focus in on the summoners from the new Soulbound reward cards, because we can see here that the total BCX printed is actually quite high when you compare it to something like Chaos Legion, for example. So you can see here that roughly through 2 seasons, we're at about, I'll round down, right, just because we're at about 140,000 total BCX printed for each of these summoners. So let's go here, just for context. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the Chaos Legion summoners here, and I just want to look at the rare ones, right, because we're looking rare and rare. So you can see here, the Kellia Frendules, Tarsas, General Sloans of the world, only 389,000 or 390,000, 391,000 have been printed. Granted, we are probably going to print more, and I would say I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up only being roughly 75%, because we've opened about 8 million packs. I'm sorry, if this ends up being around like 66%, we've opened like 8.5 million packs. We're gonna have probably like 12.5-ish, 12 point maybe 6 million-ish packs, right, overall. So I can see this number going up, and I wouldn't be surprised if we ended up having like 500,000 total BCX printed once all packs are open, right? There's still, that's my whole point. There's still plenty of packs that can be printed. So we go back to the reward summoners, and you can see that we're already kind of approaching that, 140,000 range, which is quite significant. So let me actually go ahead here. I want to pull, I want to pull the calculator out. And if we just say, right, and let me even round down further, right? Let's say it was 130,000 by the end of the second season. So roughly 1 month in, if we're looking at 130,000, and these are going to run at a print rate for, for a print run for roughly a year, right? They said anywhere for like 1 to 2 years. My guess is it's going to top out probably at around a year, mainly because we should expect Rebellion sometime later in 2023. These came out in January, end of January 2023. So I can, I would expect that a couple months after Rebellion is out, we're probably going to want to see new reward cards. And so that gives us roughly 12 months. So you multiply this by 12, and we're looking at 1.56 million BCX per summoner, roughly, right? I mean, we can fudge the numbers around a little bit, but you can see that this is way higher than the amount that we have in Chaos Legion. And people point to Chaos Legion all the time and say, oh my gosh, there's too many cards, right? Too many packs, let's burn them all. So if you think that that's the case, well, then you should be very alarmed by the numbers here for the reward summoners. Now, my point in bringing this up is not to be an alarmist about it, because I'm actually not too worried about it overall. At the end of the day, these are interesting summoners, but they're not like the best summoners. I don't think they're going to be like super clutch for the meta. I think there might be certain ones that can come in handy from time to time. But ultimately, I know that the main concern about this is going to be, well, you're going to have a bunch of botted accounts or alt accounts, whatever you want to call it, that will now be able to play and earn because we have way more summoners in the mix. And I think it's a little too early, personally. I think it's a little too early to fully comprehend exactly what type of impact they're going to have. Obviously, I look at the 1.5 million number compared to Chaos Legion and say, well, that's obviously significantly higher. It might be even, it's roughly like 3x at these projections over the next year that we would have that many more summoners available to play. But ultimately, what we cannot calculate yet is the amount of good that they could do for the ecosystem if they eventually get unlocked as cards, right, or as NFTs. So you'd have to potentially pay the burn amount, potentially burn some vouchers, burn DEC, and that could be good for the overall ecosystem and the demand. Like, sorry, the that won't happen unless the demand is there. If we have new people coming in that want to buy these, but the flip side of that is then, well, it doesn't even matter if new demand is there. If enough people just start botting accounts now, alt accounts, they can just keep running those bots for forever, right? And I've been talking about this. I know several other content creators. Shout out to Tails. He's usually been the one bringing this up. Again, I'm not saying it to say like, it's the end of the world and we need to fix something. Although the data, make of it what you will. I'm just trying to bring it up and bring it to your attention. Like I said, I think it's a little too early to comprehend the full impact of it, but I did want to share where we are trending from a total BCX standpoint, because I just think it's interesting, and I think it's worth discussing now because we can get our voices heard, and I'm sure the team is already looking at this and probably planning ahead. So again, I don't know where this goes, but I am curious to hear your thoughts on this specifically. I mean, we can talk about the monsters, but the summoners to me are a little bit, they matter a little bit more. And Matt said this maybe like a year ago or not a year and a half ago, maybe a year ago, sometime in 2022 before the whole like soulbound reward card thing happened. But people kept asking if we were ever going to see reward summoners again, because we'd only up to that point had two. I think there was Daria and then Kretch. And Matt said that we weren't going to have reward card summoners because he wanted, well, not he, but I guess, the goal was to get people to invest in the ecosystem. And by not having summoners, really, like, at the end of the day, your deck lives or dies based on how far your summoners can take your team, right? You can have all maxed out reward cards, but if you don't buy any summoners, you can't play them at all, right? So you definitely can't play them at the higher levels. So it was a little bit of a surprise for me to once they made that decision that there were going to be summoners here. Obviously, there's a different mix here. They're not amazing. It's 6 mana. It's quite expensive. They get you gladiator cards, and most of these botted accounts probably won't even have gladiator cards. Even my account doesn't even have like a full, well, nobody has a full gladiator deck. But point being that, I'm just curious to see how this will end up playing over the next couple of months, maybe over the next year. But at this point, what I'm curious about, my guess, right, is that at the end of the day, I think Matt is probably going to go back to that, or at least I wouldn't be surprised if the team ended up going back towards that whole like, okay, well, we did one run with summoners, and now there's a bunch of summoners out there, but if we want people to invest in the game, then maybe the next set, right? So whatever comes out with Rebellion doesn't have summoners in it, right? And the thing is, like, you'd want that to be the case because that gives more value to these, and ultimately, like. No, actually, I don't know. Maybe people feel differently, and they would want more summoners. But if they are going to be reward summoners, I feel like they have to have some kind of like uniqueness to them, some kind of reason that you'd want to have them. And so while I just said that I don't really care much about the summoners here, while I said that I don't think that these summoners are super powerful, I still care about them and I still want to max them out, right? Maybe it's the soulbound mentality of like, oh, I can't just go buy them off the market, so now I want to win them, I want to earn them, and I want to be able to play with them, or just have them as part of my collection. Maybe it's the collection or the collector within me that wants to have those. So again, I'm just sharing these numbers with you, sharing this data with you. I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are, how you feel this is going to play out, and maybe if at some point they end up putting in some kind of limits, right? So maybe they do max out the reward summoners after a certain point, but they let the other reward cards go. That could be cool, and I would be fine with that, actually, so that we don't have too many summoners out there. But at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is being... a lot of this stuff is just, we're figuring out as we go, both the team and the community. So I don't want to look at this and say like, oh my God, it's the end of the world, because I don't think it's the end of the world, but I do wonder what the long-term game plan is. And maybe this is something that we can keep in mind or keep top of mind for the next couple of months, watch it, and then potentially start having conversations with the team through the town halls and all that. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I will catch you all in the next video and see you around the game. Take care.